This summer, 6 kids from the KC metro area met at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art to ask the question, what is empowerment? And to look for examples of power in artworks of the museum's collection.
Could you define power?
Ask me again.
Oh, that's a huge question.
Well, I think I need to know what you mean by power, so I'm not quite sure where you're going.
We wanted to know how people define power. Then we realized we have never thought of it ourselves. The answers to these questions depend on people's opinions, so we asked ourselves these questions.
I think it basically starts with whatever drives you, whatever your passions are.
In the soul.
I get any power I have on a religious basis.
My father's early death kind of empowers me, gives me strength.
It requires something inside you, but I think it also requires something outside of you.
Probably my connections to other people that I care about.
My family.
That my family, my kids.
My family and from my background.
These objects suggest that the power to solve problems or get through difficult times can come from an external source. Combinations of gathered materials can provide that power. Most sub-Saharan African peoples believe that direct communication with the gods, nature spirits, or ancestral spirits could encourage the gods or spirits to directly intervene in their lives. Dancers would put on costumes and masks and become totally possessed by a specific spirit so that people could make requests for help or to seek answers to problems. These power objects from various groups in the Democratic Republic of the Congo are another way of accessing supernatural powers. A visit to the museum's Chinese gallery suggested a completely different philosophy. Buddha's long ears are a reminder that in order to attain enlightenment, Siddhartha first had to take off the jewelry and other drapings of a powerful, princely life. Power was not to be sought after, but rather the troubles and discomforts of life could be attained by letting go and releasing earthy materials and problems. This Lohan figure, made between the years 907 and 1234, resided in a cave temple as a reminder and inspiration to the people that happiness and comfort were gained not by striving for power, but by seeking inner peace.
We realized we needed to rephrase the question. While everyone had their own definition of power, a common theme was that people seemed to get their power from within, such as self-confidence or willpower.
It would be in the soul.
Or from something external, such as their religion.
I have to say my religion.
Or their families.
I think so. My family empowers me a lot. My husband.
Or from some combination of the two. The question we asked was, what is the source of power that affects your life the most?
I think that your family and your experiences of what you do can make you who you are and can give you the strength. So I think it's a combination of both.
I think it requires something inside you, but I think it also requires something outside of you.
If there was someone out there that I respected, gave me some feedback that I was doing well, that might make me feel a certain sense of, contribute to a sense of power. So outside in that way, but also from my own self, I guess.
Well, it's a combination of both, because how you feel about it internally clearly affects what you do with it externally.
My family, they push me to do things, but in the end, it has to be the inside willing to do it.
Perception of powers that affect people's lives changes with a single culture, brought on sometimes by the changes in political climate. The period in Europe from the late 17th century to the late 18th century, known as Enlightenment, was a time when people looked back to the classic Greek and Roman times when the power of the human mind, body, and will was seen as a potent force. These neoclassical works express the power and importance of the individual and a reverence for heroes and myths of ancient Greece and Rome. Toward the end of the 1700s, though, as France was in the throes of a revolution, artists began to focus more on spiritual power and the power of nature as a supreme. This was the birth of the Romantic period, when people saw political and economic freedom as a God-given right, and the artists reflected this sentiment with images of nature as a dominant force and man as a less significant force. Two paintings by the English painter Joseph Wright of Derby, the portrait of Sir George Cook Bart, done between 1766 and 1768, and the landscape Outlet of Wineburn Lake, done in 1796, reflect a shift in focus from the heroic portrait to the grand landscape 30 years later.
Looking at the 18th century European art, we saw how within our society artists expressed what they saw as important sources of power in both ways depending on the politics of the time. We saw this reflected in people's answers stating that at some times they drew their power from within and sometimes from something external.
I think our relationships just as people and sharing a planet can be empowering.
Luckily, I feel like I have a number of different sources of empowerment, so if one went away, I would probably have to rely a little more heavily on another for a while.
The outside affects the inside and gets your inner strength going.
A lot of what makes you who you are when you grow up is, you know, your experiences at home, who your family and friends are, and I think they can, you know, give you power. They give you the morals that you live by, whether it's religious or, you know, just strictly conventional.
The word power has a lot of different meanings. It can mean something very physical, like the power to lift something heavy, or something political, like the power to control a nation, or something personal, like the power to get up in the morning and get through the day. Some of what drives us comes from outside us, such as the food we eat or the people who inspire us. Or from within, like curiosity to learn more, confidence to try new things, or the inner strength to face our daily challenges.
Can you just give me one more try at that?
Yeah!